Welcome to Across Africa, a weekly roundup of stories from across the continent. I'm Georgia Calvin-Smith, and coming up, Burkina Faso's seen a spike in extremist attacks over the years. As a result, the country's facing a massive displacement crisis. We hear from some of those forced from their homes. Also, drought in Zimbabwe sent people scrambling to find ways to find enough drinking water. Pipes in the city of Bulawayo run dry for 96 hours a week. And a ban on dreadlocks in Malawian classrooms is reversed after a court ruling upholding Rastafarianism as a religion. The change is a relief to worried parents who'd struggled to get their kids an education. But first, militants in Burkina Faso have been ramping up attacks. Dozens of people have been killed in raids over the past few weeks. The country is struggling with one of the world's fastest growing displacement crises. Our correspondents went to speak to villagers forced from their homes by a deadly attack in mid-January.
Leave or face certain death. These women walked for 5 days to flee their home. They had no choice, they say, and packed up the little they could after their village Nagroogo was attacked. The road was long, fear and hunger didn't stop them. Now they've found safety in Kaya, they're searching for their husbands or any men that survived the attack.
My husband isn't dead. He fled to Kaya, but his 2 brothers were killed in the attack. 7 of my brothers were also killed. They're killing all the men. That's why the men fled. More than a dozen children have disappeared, and we're only just starting to find them. Maybe in town we'll see the others.
Once in Kaya, these internally displaced people head to the World Food Programme's distribution site. But to receive any aid, the displaced need to be registered at the local welfare office. At this stand for women with newborns, babies must be checked for malnutrition.
This child is in the green zone, which means he isn't malnourished. If he was in the yellow zone, it would mean he was malnourished. In the red zone means we have detected severe malnutrition. For this, we send the children to a health center.
Each person receives around 15 kilos of food. Grains, oil and rice have been distributed to nearly 4,000 people a day since the site opened.
These people need help. We had planned for an initial amount of food, but the demand is higher. We are asking all WFP donors to keep up their support so we can take care of new arrivals. The people here are in shock, and we're trying to help them so they can get through this difficult time.
In 2019, more than 500,000 people were displaced in Burkina Faso, according to the United Nations.
In Egypt, at least 5 political prisoners have died behind bars since the beginning of December. Human rights advocates say that the deaths are down to inhumane conditions and treatment. Supporters of Alaa Abdel Fattah, a key figure of the 2011 revolution, fear that he may suffer a similar fate. He's entering his 6th year in prison. Our correspondent sent us this report.
Alaa Abdel Fattah is one of the icons of the 2011 Arab Spring. He comes from a family of human rights campaigners. On this day in Cairo, he was commemorating his father. Alaa believes that the fight must continue, whatever the cost.
The fear is there, but also the defiance is there. It's always important to continue to defend rights.
Alaa made this speech last September, in what was his last public appearance. 3 weeks later, the authorities took him back into prison. For his family, everything they've seen of him over the past few years can be reduced to just a few photos, because since the end of 2013, Alaa has spent more than 5 years behind bars. And he's not the only one. Thousands of Egyptians have been arrested again since September, following demonstrations demanding the ousting of President Sisi, who's led the country with an iron fist since the overthrow of the government formed by the revolution. Now, repression is reaching all walks of life.
They are targeting political figures, they are targeting academics, they are targeting writers, they are targeting journalists and lawyers beyond any scope we've ever seen before. But they're also targeting people in the street. And I think this is the main intimidating tactic they are using right now.
Alaa receives just 1 hot meal per week, which his sister Mona and his mother make for him. Their lives revolve around their visits to the prison and their fight to keep him alive.
The prisons are no longer a place for rehabilitation. They are more of concentration camps where the prisoners are subjected to extremely harsh and criminal conditions and abuses.
Mona and her mother hope that Allah will hold out until the day they manage to secure his release. According to human rights associations, more than 60,000 people have been arrested since the current regime came into power in 2013. The government accuses the majority of those arrested of belonging to a terrorist organization.
Communities in Zimbabwe, desperate for drinking water, are resorting to the use of stagnant wells. Drought has meant that public access to mains water in the city of Bulawayo has been cut to just 96 hours a week. Nicolas Chemin tells us more.
This is what dams are currently looking like in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe's second city. It's the consequence of a terrible drought last year. Residents like Abraham Kavalanjila have no choice. They have to look for dirty water.
We have no option. Yeah, this water is dangerous. As you can see, just check. Someone did his rubbish here. There's nothing that we can do, you see. Yeah. But we still have to, because we need some water to use at home.
He then walks back to his home with his 3 sons.
We use this water here. We have to boil it first, and then we put it in the fridge. We boil the water so that we can purify it from germs, and we are able to use it for drinking and cooking.
City authorities shut down water supplies for 96 hours a week because of the fall in reservoir levels.
This will take me for maybe only 2 to 3 days. This is for drinking, this is for bathing. At the same time, there's no toilet water. How embarrassing.
The city has asked to declare Bulawayo a water shortage area to help unlock funding. It also says the long-term solution is the construction of a new dam 100 kilometers away to draw water from the Zambezi River.
One of the flagship reforms brought in since Felix Tshisekedi became DR Congo's president a year ago has been free primary education. But the costly measure got off to a bumpy start and is still struggling with teething troubles. Our correspondents report.
The head teacher of this school in Kinshasa doesn't know where to turn. Classrooms are overcrowded. There are 85 children in this class alone, and there's barely enough room for everyone.
See how the children have to stand. We don't have enough benches or classrooms. Last year we had 275 pupils in the entire school. This year we have almost 2,000.
Now that primary school is free in the DRC, children of all backgrounds have access to education. That's led to an extra 4 million pupils across the country.
They make us study. They teach us how to read and how to write.
When school wasn't free, I didn't have enough friends, but now I have a lot more friends than before.
More friends, but not more funds. Teachers are finding it increasingly difficult to do their jobs.
This is what we use for maths. And this one is for French, but I can't use it anymore. It's old and falling to pieces.
Salaries are another worry. Before, teachers were paid by parents. Now the state is responsible for paying staff. But many have yet to receive any money. Joseph Kabange says he can't even afford bus fare anymore.
We haven't been paid so far. We're still waiting for our salary, which is why we have to walk home. We can't take public transport. We don't have a choice.
The government says that 97,000 teachers will receive outstanding pay by the end of January.
We'll find a solution, because our country is full of riches. We're working on new ways to raise money and to ensure that this reform continues to be implemented.
The World Bank has granted DRC a $1 billion loan over 3 years in a bid to help build urgently needed new schools.
Rastafarians in Malawi are relieved that they'll finally be able to send their kids to classes again after a High Court ruling that has upheld their rights to worship freely. In part, that means that Rastafari children can no longer be banned from government schools. Take a look.
For the past 2 years, Ishmael Nansolo was banned from going to school because of his dreadlocks. After a long legal battle, the 19-year-old is now finally able to resume his education thanks to a court ruling allowing all children of Rastafari religion to enroll in government schools in Malawi.
If the courts hadn't granted this injunction, I think my life would be over. I believe education is the only answer to a brighter future. I'm thankful to my father who struggled and fought for my right to go to school.
Ishmael's father, Ali, lobbied for over a decade for the Malawi government to uphold Rastafarianism as a religion. He considers the ruling as a victory for his community and hopes it will help it be more accepted in Malawi, a country where Rastafarians have often faced discrimination and persecution.
If our children goes to school and gets educated, then we have answers to some of our problems. Everybody got a light to follow his conscience, religion, belief. We have that light.
The Rastafari movement, which was born in the Caribbean, preaches a return of the black diaspora to the promised land of Africa. But those who did return to the continent have been widely oppressed, including in Malawi, where Rastafarianism was effectively banned until the 1990s. Now perceptions have slowly begun to change. The ruling allowing Rasta children to go to school in Malawi follows similar judgments in Zimbabwe, Kenya, and South Africa.
Well, that's it for Across Africa. Thanks very much for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.